So, Willie, again, the theme is navigating uncertainty. We only have 15 minutes. We could probably spend 15 hours just discussing all of this. There's a lot that's going on, and some of it is really quite scary. I'd like to get your take right now. We have seen drone attacks at several European airports, cyber attacks. There was that check-in thing that just happened here in Europe a couple of weeks ago. Where do you see this? What must the industry do? Obviously, we need governments to be helping. Are they holding their end of the bargain here?
I think on issues like this, they are, because I think there's a common agenda. Nobody wants to see any industry disrupted by cyber or by these drone attacks. So, both Luis Rodriguez and Luis Gallego said it, resilience. Our industry is remarkably resilient, and when we see these cyber attacks and drone attacks, and they're not new, we've seen these for many years. We've just got to get on and fix it and recover as quickly as we possibly can. And I think that's the nature of our industry, that we're always trying to ensure that our performance is as strong and resilient as it possibly is. I think that's going to be the case going forward as well. So I think one of the great things about the airline industry is that we do learn from past events and past mistakes to make future decisions better. And I look at an industry today that I think makes decisions much faster, much better than we did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And I think that will be the case going forward as well.
The US right now has a government shutdown. We're starting to already see impact of that. There have been some issues with air traffic control towers at airports being understaffed in one case, no controllers. I'm curious what you're hearing from your members about this, and is IATA able to have conversations to help the elected officials understand that their inaction is paralyzing part of the global aviation industry?
Well, it hasn't had significant impact to date. And when we look, the shutdown at the end of 2018, 2019, I think went on for 32 days. And, it started having a big impact as we got towards the end of that shutdown. So IATA, with a coalition of other bodies, industry bodies, has written to the senators and Congress to outline the importance of aviation to the economy of the US. I think one of the positives that we've seen this time around is they haven't stopped recruitment, because clearly one of the big issues in the US has been the recruitment of new air traffic controllers, and that has not been affected by the shutdown. That's a significant change from past events and a very positive development. So hopefully we'll see this issue resolved quickly. But to date, I would say it's not had a major impact.
Okay, all right. And speaking of positive, IATA just published the August 2025 results.
Yeah.
There was a lot of good news in there.
Yeah, I think it's very positive. We continue to see strong demand for passenger and surprisingly strong demand for cargo. So when we looked at our forecast for this year, we assumed passenger growth this year would be up 5.8%. Year to date, we're at 5%. But there have been a couple of external issues that have impacted on growth, particularly in the Middle East. And we expected cargo volumes to grow by 0.7. Year to date, they're up 3.3. So I think the cargo performance has certainly surprised me. We had expected to see a tail off by the time we got to August. August was up 4.1%. So we are seeing changes in the patterns that we'd witnessed previously. So it won't surprise you to know that what was the major trade lane, and still is just about number one, which is Asia to North America, that showed a decline in August. And but it was compensated for significant growth in Asia to Europe. So Asia to North America was down just over 2% in August. Asia to Europe was up 13% in August. So what we're seeing now is that the Asia-Europe trade lane is slowly catching up and will probably overtake Asia, North America as the #1 trade lane for cargo. So again, it demonstrates the resilience of the industry, because where they see weakening demand in one area, they can move capacity to address the demand that exists in other areas. So I think the cargo performance has been encouraging this year, and certainly the passenger performance continues to be very encouraging.
Is there anything that you attribute the overall global growth in cargo to? I mean, is it just more robust economies? Is it a particular segment or segments of products that are being moved now by air?
Yeah, there are always many factors that impact on cargo, because obviously goods are shipped by sea or by air, and the developments on sea transportation can have a big impact on air transportation. You know, if we see disruption in sea, well then you obviously see an increase in air. Pricing can have a big impact, but generally I think the global economy is probably better than people had expected. E-commerce had been doing very well. I think that is being affected by the de minimis issues in the US. But again, it's a North America, it's an Asia-North America trade lane issue. There was clear evidence of people shipping goods before the introduction of the tariffs to try and get the goods in place before the tariffs came into effect. And that's why I said we had expected to see a slowdown in August, in July and August. That isn't evident at the moment, other than the decline that we have witnessed in Asia to North America.
One consumer trend that we have seen emerge is the so-called premium leisure market. Individuals traveling for personal reasons, whether it's a holiday or just visiting friends and family, where they are spending their own money for premium products. Curious if you see this trend remaining strong from the IATA level. Are there signs that it might get stronger or tail off?
Yeah, I don't think this is a new trend. In fact, it was something I used to talk about when I was in Luis's position, even back to my days in British Airways. Premium leisure has always been a very important segment. And I find analysts who cover our industry often confuse premium travel with business travel. And we had to keep reminding them, and in fact, I think we still have to do that today, that there is a lot of traffic in the premium cabin that is not traveling on business, is traveling on leisure. That has always been the case. It was clear that during the recovery from the COVID shutdown, that segment was recovering stronger than in the economy segment. And given that there's clear evidence that business travel is still behind where it was in 2019, premium travel is significantly above, and is recovering at a pace that was quicker than the recovery in the economy travel, because that segment is so robust. And I expect that to continue to be the case.
Right. I mean, you speak about the longevity. I first wrote about premium leisure travel in 2009 during the great financial crisis when I was still at Forrester Research. So this is something that has been going on now for a long time. I guess what I'm wondering is, related to that, there's been some discussion about whether the low-cost airline model is still viable. One airline CEO says that model is dead, and his perspective may be a US perspective.
Yeah, no, it is a US, and I disagree with Scott. You know,
I was trying not to name names,
yeah,
but
no,
okay,
but,
yes, Scott Kirby,
we all know
United
who it is.
Airlines.
So, you know, Scott has been very vocal about that in the US. I think what's happening in the US is not typical of what's happening around the rest of the world. Without question, the low-cost model is alive and well, and will be in the future too. You know, if you look at Europe, you know, there's no evidence of it slowing down. It continues to be strong in Asia, continues to be strong in many parts of the world, and will continue to grow. So I think Scott's comments may be, you know, US specific rather than a comment on the low-cost industry globally. So I don't see any evidence of the low-cost model being under threat at all.
What I think is interesting is you're seeing some of these low-cost airlines join IATA.
Yeah.
And that must be pretty gratifying.
Yeah, so we've 364 members now, and about 50 of them are low-cost airlines. And significant development recently was Southwest Airlines joining us, who have traditionally not participated in a global body like IATA. And I think it demonstrates that IATA is relevant to all business models and will continue to be relevant going forward.
Right, and I just want to put out there that Southwest made that decision to join IATA long before the activist investor Elliott Group took a stake in it.
So, yeah, we had been talking to them for some time.
So Willie, as one thing that IATA has also brought to the industry is the whole concept of modern airline retailing. It came out of the one order concept, and from Yannick and his team there, and it's now starting to become real. We heard about orders and offers at Riyadh Air. We're hearing other airlines talk about it, and so on. As you speak with your colleagues about it, are you pleased with the progress that is being made? Where do you believe that more progress needs to happen?
I think progress is slow, but it is gaining momentum. It is, I think, a frightening issue for a lot of airlines because of the complexity of their legacy IT systems. And you made the point about modularity. I think going forward, this is one of the critical issues. Airlines don't want to be locked into one provider. I think having modular systems where you can choose the best in class is very important. And that's one of the benefits of what we're doing going forward. It's to ensure that as we transition towards a new world, that it's done on a modular basis, so that new suppliers will always have an opportunity to enter the market. New technology will be able to be plugged in and to make it better. So I think it's an exciting development, but it is going to take time because it will require significant change. So there are a lot of airlines that are progressed towards offers and orders, but many in the industry have still not even embraced the concepts because there's lots of other things that they need to focus on as well. But I think it is going to be a feature of the industry in the years ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate the fact that they're focusing on other things, but at the same time, if you're not focusing on how do you serve your customer, how do you find ways to become a more profitable business, then you're going to end up like Pan Am. I mean, just a bag that I end up carrying to the World Aviation Festival.
Yeah, I think the issue is, for a lot of airlines, all they're selling is the flight.
Right.
And therefore, it's relatively easy to continue with the models that we have. Where you're selling a package of goods, then our current systems are not designed to be able to do that easily for the customer, particularly where the customer decides to change something. The whole thing unravels at that point. So offers and orders becomes very important. If you're selling beyond the flight, and it's then, what experience you're going to have on the flight. Do you want to buy additional products associated with that flight? Do you want to then buy car hire? Do you want to buy hotels? And if you're an airline that's genuinely in an e-commerce business selling everything to the consumer, well then offers and orders is the way to go. If you're an airline that's just focused on selling tickets from A to B, and there are a lot of airlines just doing that, it's not as relevant to them today as, or maybe as important as other issues that they're facing.
As we wrap up, just, you started your career as a pilot at Aer Lingus.
Yeah.
Curious, you're sitting on the plane, do you ever sit there and say, oh, that pilot just ruined that landing or increased it or whatever?
No, definitely not. I visited Southwest, I spent a day with them a couple of months ago, and as part of the day, for some reason they thought it would be nice if they put me in a simulator for an hour. And I get into the simulator. It's been over 20 years since I'd flown a 737 simulator. And they were giving me engine failures at V1. And I think, I'm your guest, and you're putting me through this. So no, I have a great appreciation for the work that pilots do. I'm very, very comfortable sitting there and admiring the work that they do, but I would never comment on it.
So as you, I presume though that you will talk with the pilots maybe before or after the flight?
I often do, yes.
And obviously you hear from airlines about ATC, but I'm curious, what do the pilots tell you their frustrations are? Because again, this is a big issue, it's a global issue in many parts
Yeah.
You know,
No, it's terrible, and it continues to be the cause of huge frustration, particularly in Europe and the US. But in the US, I think people are beginning to see light at the end of the tunnel. I think to give credit to the current administration, they are determined to address the ATC issue in the US once and for all, and that's a real positive. In Europe, it's extremely frustrating. You know, we're seeing the vast majority of delays are ATC delays. 60% of the delays are caused by staffing issues in ATC. That is just unacceptable. And you know, strikes, as Louise pointed out, in France, continue to impact on the whole European network. And we keep talking to Europe about the reality of being able to overfly France when French ATC is on strike, and that should be, it should be in place. It's disgraceful that we're still debating these issues. So an extremely frustrating issue for the industry, still the cause of a lot of delays, a lot of disruption, and a lot of cost. And quite honestly, there's no excuse for it. They really do need to get their act together.
Do you think that there is a recognition on the part of the air traffic navigation organizations that the status quo is not acceptable and we have to find ways to find a compromise to collaborate better?
I don't think there's any pressure on them, because to be honest with you, their performance, you know, they still get paid the same amount of money. In fact, you know, if they incur additional costs, they just add that to the bill. So there's no pressure on ANSPs to improve their performance. And that's the frustrating thing. You know, we suffer as an industry. We pay the bill when ATC doesn't deliver. We pay the bill when flights are canceled because of ATC. And there's no appreciation of the fact that that continues to be the case. So when we talk about consumer regulation, and we go back to what was introduced in 2004 in the EU, that was to address airlines' underperformance. And I think there was a credible reason for introducing it. Today, when most of the delays, the majority of the cancellations are caused by issues completely outside the control of the airlines. I think it's disgraceful that airlines are still having to pick up the bill when the cause of the problem was ATC or airports, and that needs to be addressed.
And just to clarify, that you're speaking about EU 261?
EU 261, 2004,
right. Okay,
yeah.
Great.
And my challenge to European politicians is, show me the data. They have no data. You know, so at least in the US, we were able to counter the previous administration's move to introduce similar regulation, when we were able to show data that demonstrated there is not a problem as a result of involuntary, denied boarding. It doesn't exist to the degree that you need to regulate it. It's so small a percentage of the total operation that to introduce a regulation which would add cost to all consumers made no sense. Europe has no data to continue to justify the application of EU 261. They don't collect the data. They base it on anecdote. They base it sometimes on their personal experience. But when a flight is delayed because of air traffic control, Europe is not seeing that as an ATC problem. They're seeing that as an airline problem, and that's just not right.
Do you think there's any willingness to rethink it?
Well, I think we're going to keep pushing on it. You know, we're not giving this one up, because to be fair to airlines, and I mean airlines of all business models, their performance in terms of serving the customer has significantly improved since this regulation was introduced in 2004. You know, we don't have the same degree of problems at an airline level that we did. We have more problems based on airports and ATC than we did back in 2004, but the bill is being picked up by the airlines, and it's not fair, it's not right.
Okay, thanks. Willie, stay in your seat.
Okay.
We're now going to, I'm going to ask